I can do it.
I'll do it. You'll just have to... No, I'll introduce you. It's okay. No laughing.
Okay, go.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, my boyfriend, Lewis.
What's going on, everyone?
We thought that we'd do something a little bit different today and film a video about how we actually purchased the home that we're currently living in.
Yep.
So we first bought this house in January 26, 2020, so at the very start of this year.
And we were looking for about 6 months. So when we were first looking, we heard a lot of different information from different people, like, you know, a mate heard a thing from a mate. There's just like a lot of misinformation. So I thought we would just, I don't know, I guess like make this video, just share our
experience and I guess our point of view as well, because we don't use any particular lingo, which is what I think we both found
super confusing.
Yeah, and a lot of the language that was used, even when we were doing our research on YouTube, a lot of the videos that we found were from real estate agents or people that were using particular words that we were like, what does that actually mean? And even when they were explaining it, we still had no idea what they were talking about. So we thought that we would tell you our personal experience and how we came to buy our first home. So let's get into it.
Okay, so the first thing we kind of did when we realized we wanted to buy a house together was write down a kind of like a list of what we definitely wanted in a house. So like the negotiables and the non-negotiables. So what we did was like make a list each separately, and then we kind of came together and we compiled the essentials lists together. So then we have something to work from. So for me personally, it was like, what was it?
It was a bath. Yours was a bath.
A bath, yeah.
A bath. I think mine
wasn't that long.
Yeah,
it was like, it was gas, like having a gas stove on top.
Oh yeah, gas, not electric.
Yep.
And that was yours actually wasn't that long. I think Carl was a bit more of the princess and a bit more picky.
Yeah, yours was a lot longer.
Mine was having a garage, definitely. I didn't really care about a bath, but now that we actually have one, yes, my next list would definitely have a bath, air conditioning, or some sort of cooling.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the heat. So my non-negotiable was definitely air conditioning or some sort of fans. Heating as well, preferably ducted heating.
Yeah.
And quiet off the main street area.
Oh yeah, that was mine too.
Yeah, I think that
not on a main road.
I think that a lot of our non-negotiables were actually quite in line with each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was just a few that didn't match up, but in the end, it didn't really matter. We both kind of came to the same conclusion.
Yeah. And like if push came to shove, like those aren't set in stone.
Yeah.
Like if we came across a house and like one of those things were missing, then we had like decided beforehand, like, you know, it's not a deal breaker if like one or two things are missing, but like in an ideal situation, like that would be like the perfect list for us. But yeah, it was kind of just like a guide, so we could like refine the houses we were looking for.
Yeah, and I think that it was really good because we were then on the same page of what we were looking for and what we wanted, rather than just looking at all these different houses, not knowing that the other person wouldn't have liked them. Like the other one was that we didn't want a 2-story house either. We both wanted a one level because we were living in a 2-story house and we didn't like it. So a one level.
First world problems.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that really helped us get on the same page with each other and stopped arguments. So.
Yep. For sure.
So the next thing that we looked at was deciding on a price, and I guess a price range of houses that we were willing to look at, and really sticking with that price as well. So we did it in secret to each other. So we actually wrote down on little bits of paper, okay, what's the absolute maximum that you would be willing to pay for a house? And it was actually really close in what we were both thinking, and we hadn't even discussed like money just yet.
Yeah, and I was kind of a bit more, I think we were both on the conservative side as for the amount we were willing to pay.
Yes.
Because you hear a lot of like horror stories and like people, they kind of buy like maybe $1 million house or you know, whatever they get, and the interest rates increase, or maybe one person loses their job and they're like really struggling. So I was kind of like trying to avoid like having to put ourselves in those situations.
Yeah.
So I think we were pretty conservative for our price range that we got this house for 580,000, and our budget was like 600.
Yeah.
And that's still a lot of money. Like, and we live in Melbourne, so those are pretty like typical prices for like suburban areas. But
yeah.
like we could have put a budget for like 800,000 or like $1 million, because a lot of people like overextend themselves in that situation.
I think that we both. I think that because this was our very first home, I think we both knew that we didn't want to spend a lot of money anyway, because this might not be our forever home.
Yeah.
And I think that even though it might be, but if we were then to get a bigger house, we didn't want to then like not be able to make that much profit on our first home. And because it was just a first home, it's like dipping your toes into the water and just to see how things went.
Yeah. And then I think we also like reverse engineered the amount of mortgage payments we would actually like have to make based on that loan amount. So there's like a few calculators you can use, and you put in like say 600 grand, and it will tell you how much you have to pay back each month.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like a good guide. And then it's like a sliding scale. So you kind of pick a number that you're comfortable repaying every month.
Yeah.
And that kind of like determines your budget, I guess.
Yeah. And I think that having that price limit was really good. But even after we determined the kind of price limit, we had big discussions about what do you earn? And I think that that's a really important discussion that you need to have with someone. Yeah, we were having discussions about what do you earn a year, or what do you earn a month? Like, I think that if you are wanting to purchase a home with someone, they're the kind of discussions that you have to be comfortable talking about before you even think about buying a house.
Yeah.
And I think right off the bat we were kind of pretty open about what we were earning and what we were willing to pay. So talking about any debts that we had that would need to be paid off, or preferably need to be paid off before buying a home, and what kind of deposit do you have, or like just having those kind of conversations before you even go looking. I think
I guess there's a lot of like money talk that you have to like maybe like go out for a couple of coffees and just talk about.
Which I mean, I think for us it wasn't a big deal because we love talking about money. Like, I think
it sounds weird when you say it out loud, but like
it sounds really boring. It's really boring and it's really dull, but it's something that we really loved to talk about. And we find it really interesting.
I agree, for sure. So I guess the next thing that we did was to go and see a mortgage broker, mainly because I don't know, like we were both with different banks. You're a full-time teacher in a public school. I own my own business, so there was just like a lot of moving parts, and we didn't really have any idea of like how much we could borrow, the best banks, interest rates. So we just went to a mortgage broker just to kind of get a feel for how much we could potentially borrow. And whether or not I could even get a loan, because I own my own business, so it's a bit harder as well. So.
And I think that we didn't want to go with just one bank because, like we're both with two different ones. So then how do you choose? So a mortgage broker actually gives you, it opens you up to 30 different potential banks that you can go with rather than just the one. So if you do want to go with a bank, even if you've been banking with them for 30 years or 20 years or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the best interest rate. So I think that's one of the benefits of going to go see a mortgage broker.
I think the biggest incentive is it's kind of like a positive feedback loop. Because for the mortgage broker, if they sign you up with a successful mortgage, they get a trailing commission for the life cycle of that mortgage, I'm pretty sure.
They do.
So it's in their best interest to work for you and try and find you the best deal, and then also works for us because they're actively hunting for like deals and banks and interest rates and stuff. So I think that was definitely worthwhile.
And they give you
a broker.
And they give you a whole different like bunch of options. Like so they'll give you the bank that has the best interest rate, but then within that bank and that interest rate, there's all different kinds of loans that you can get. And I think that that's really good because the mortgage broker explains that to you as well, the benefits of this one as opposed to this one, but then this one also has really good benefits. So and they really take their time talking to you as well, because like what Lewis said, they're working for you because they want you to feel comfortable enough to sign up with them. Because they don't get money straight off the bat. They only, I think the first initial payment that they get is on settlement day.
And I think another thing is like for us, like we always wanted to pay a 20% deposit, because you kind of hear the things like we've both read the Barefoot Investor, and they're like, oh, like at all costs try and do 20%, because then you avoid paying the
lender's mortgage insurance.
And that goes on top of the mortgage, and so you're paying interest on that amount over the life cycle. So I was like, oh, I don't want to pay it like no matter the cost. But then it kind of came to the situation where we ended up doing a 10% deposit, because if we did the 20%, it kind of would have maybe stretched us too thin and we wouldn't have had much money left over. So I think we ended up kind of just biting the bullet and going 10%, because now it's kind of put us in a better position, even though we did have to pay the LMI as well. And
even so, like the interest rate on top of that LMI isn't even that much. Like it was only a couple $1,000 our mortgage broker showed us. Like if you did have the 20%, great, but if you didn't and you had the 10, like this was like, and that's what the lender's mortgage insurance would be, and then the insurance on, not the insurance, the interest on top of that, it actually wasn't that much different. Like it didn't make it made a difference, but it didn't make a massive difference to us.
And I think the only other major downside with going the lesser than 20% route is that you can't refinance. I think, or you can't say, like, theoretically you found a cheaper bank. You can't just jump ship unless you've paid that 20%. I'm pretty sure.
That is right. So I think that is, even if you want to refinance your house as well, I'm pretty sure you have to have paid off that 20% before you think about either going to another bank or refinancing.
So we went to Aussie Home Loans personally. I mean, that's just from our personal experience. Feel free to like shop around and do your own research, but we found them to be pretty good, pretty helpful. Like they were there with us the whole way. So
and I think that you also have to make sure that you feel comfortable with them, because you do have to disclose everything. I've heard someone say on a podcast that I listened to that a mortgage broker should be like a doctor. If you're not willing to tell them your deep, dark money secrets, then they're not a right fit for you, because you have to disclose even Uber Eats, Afterpay, credit card debt, personal debt,
all the skeletons in the closet.
Everything. You need to be able to discuss that with a mortgage broker. And if you're not comfortable doing that with a mortgage broker that you're seeing, you know, you might have to shop around and see someone that you feel comfortable with.
And with our mortgage broker and maybe like the industry, they throw out like a lot of like lingo and terms, and we're just like, what are you, like, can you translate? So if you do,
layman's terms.
So like if you do use a mortgage broker or anyone, just like don't like stress about it. Just like ask them and be like, oh, can you explain that? Because I don't understand what that means.
Especially if you are a first home buyer, like don't feel like you have to say, oh yeah, okay, I understand that. Say, sorry, I don't get it. Can you please explain it to me again, or can you explain it in another way?
Because that'll for us, that'll avoid any like question marks. Question marks. Like we didn't leave any meetings. Well, we did a couple, but generally we like understood what was going on. So.
We understood most of the gist of what was going on. It was probably just a few technical terms. We were like, oh, that probably wasn't that big of a deal, which in the end it wasn't. So so Lewis actually owns his own business. So when we first initially went to the mortgage broker, we were like, oh great, like we're going to have so many different options. We're going to get the best interest rate possible. And we were so excited. And then that wasn't the case.
I was the spanner in the works, really, because you've got a government job. Like you're like the golden goose for banks, like so secure. And then I've got my own business, which I've been doing on the side for several years, but the last financial year before we applied, I was doing it full time. So it's kind of, it is a bit tricky if you are a business owner, going for a loan yourself. So for us, it was pretty beneficial, really for you, having a secure job. So when we used our mortgage broker, there's like, I think there was like maybe 40 or 50 banks that we could choose from. But because I'm a business owner, that narrowed it down to
I think it was only
one. Or like,
it was like three.
Yeah,
it was three.
It wasn't much,
Yeah, it wasn't much at all.
And I think we ended up with ANZ because I think from memory they only request 1 year 12 years of records for businesses. And I only had 1 year of like records, so like we had no other choice to pick ANZ really. So
yeah, and I think that that's something that you have to keep in mind as well, that if you are a business owner, be prepared that you're not going to get the best interest rate. Like we didn't get the best interest rate possible because Lewis had his own business. Had he not though, like had he just had, I don't know, a normal office job, we would have definitely got a much cheaper interest rate. But in the end, like it didn't really change that much for us. We still went ahead with it, and it was
like I'd rather just get the loan than not get it at all. Like it's not ideal it's not an ideal situation, but it's still not that bad either. So so continuing with the mortgage broker, this is like a pretty big like topic, is that if you're like happy with the amount you can borrow and you kind of check all the boxes, then you kind of go to the kind of pre-approval stage. So I guess this is like a good thing to do in the beginning maybe, because we were looking for about 1 or 2 months before we even went to a mortgage broker. But I feel like it's maybe better to do it the other way around, so you can know whether or not you can actually get a loan.
Have the potential to get a loan.
Yeah, because if we were looking for 2 months and then we went to go see the mortgage broker and they were like, oh, you actually can't borrow any money, then that was like potentially 2 months wasted looking for houses. Because in the back of our minds we're like, oh yeah, we can get a loan, but if we weren't able to, then that would be like a huge downer. So I reckon maybe seeing a mortgage broker in the beginning might be like a good option before you really go out and like start committing to looking every weekend and like really kind of going into it. Yeah,
knowing that you have the potential capacity to be able to get approved for a mortgage, because having the pre-approval doesn't necessarily mean that the bank will approve you. It's just saying that they have briefly overlooked your finances and they are they think that you would be a potential candidate. Like at face value, like it looks good. So, you know, once you go to put an offer in on a home, we'll go and have a look at the finances again, evaluate the home. And we'll get into that a little bit later. So the next one that we're going to talk about is actual location. So what we first started to do was to look in one particular area. So we were pretty set on a suburb in Melbourne, but what we were finding was that there just wasn't much out there, and the further that we made the area scope, so the further that we looked into different suburbs, the easier it was to find different houses that we both kind of liked. It just opens up so many more options. Like if we kind of stuck to the original area, we would have only had like a handful of houses, as opposed to, you know, kind of like broadening the area and like you have hundreds to pick from. And it is the first house, so it's not going to be like the perfect street, the perfect suburb and stuff. So I think that's just something like we were willing to kind of, you know, just negotiate and sacrifice, I guess.
And we were like ended up in a suburb that maybe we didn't think we would end up in, but it's worked out really good. So so when you're ready to go and look at a few properties and just start getting started with your research, we found that realestate.com.au was actually a really good website to find houses to go and have a look at. And I think we didn't actually count, but before we actually purchased this house, I think we probably went to over 50 house inspections. Minimum, like probably more than that, to be honest. It actually became like our weekend job. Yeah, we looked for 5 months and like 3 or 4 every Saturday. So it all adds up. And I think that once you have found a house that you're actually interested in or you're semi-interested in, usually they have multiple different opening times. So they'll have one either like early on a Saturday morning and then later in the afternoon during the week. I think that it's really important to go to as many of those open inspections as you possibly can for that one house. Just so then you can get a different like perspective on the lighting and what it looks like in like the afternoon and what it looks like in the morning, and then the area around it as well. So like if it's really quiet in the afternoon, it might be really busy in the morning. So just going to openings at different times, I think, is a really good strategy to decide on if you actually want to put an offer in on that house. And I think we were taking screenshots of the times they were on as well. So then like we could just go to a house for like 15 minutes and then quickly leave, go to the next one. So then you could like do quite a lot in a single day. As well. And that kind of rolls on to the next point, and that's I guess it's like personal, but try not to get too emotional about a house that you see.
Yeah.
Because we saw a couple in particular, and the first house we ever saw, we just like fell in love with straight away before we even saw a mortgage broker, like even really. I mean, we talked about buying a house, but we were just like, oh, let's just go have a look at a house. And that just happened to be the one that we just like fell in love with.
Yeah, I think I cried about not getting that house as well. I think because I just walked in and I was like, oh, like this is every single thing that I would want in a house. Like I'm in love. And we hadn't even seen a mortgage broker yet. We didn't even know how much we could potentially borrow. Like I think we just went for fun. Like I think we went to auctions because it was like interesting and fun, and then we actually saw that this particular house had an open house, and so we went and had a look, and we both just fell in love. And I think it's really important that you have to, like, yes, you have to love the house, but I think that you shouldn't become too emotionally attached to it because you might not get it, and there's no point getting really upset about something that you didn't get. So I think we felt that way about a few houses, and in the end, like, I'm actually really glad that we didn't get that first house that we fell in love. In hindsight we did.
And that house had body corporate and it was on a main road, so and that was before we even made a list of what we were looking for. So potentially if we rushed into that house, then we might have
regretted it later down the track. Like even another house that we saw, we both absolutely fell in love with it. Same area as where we live now, and we are both so glad that we didn't actually buy that house because of the size, where we couldn't see it at that time how small that house actually was.
And it's funny because we were like, oh, we're never going to find another house like that, and then next weekend or a couple of weeks later we're like, oh, there's always other houses out there.
There's always others, and there's always ones that are better as well.
And as long as you keep looking, you're always going to uncover
you have
new
to be
places.
active.
You got to be really active because otherwise we wouldn't have come across this place. And,
exactly right. All right, so once you so I guess the difference that we thought of as well is if we actually wanted to put an offer in on a house or go by auction.
Once you find one you like.
Once you actually find one you like. Some, they have already chosen that they are going to do an auction, whereas others only take in anonymous offers. But we chose to not go through an auction just because we think that it is a little bit too risky for a first home buyer because you don't get approved first. So for an auction, it's unconditional. So you have to buy the property with no conditions attached to it. And if the bank rejects your application, then you have to forfeit a deposit or you'll get fined a lot of money. So we thought that an auction wasn't probably the best option for us.
Risky, especially with our pre-approval, which we did get, but because I had a business, and even if I had a full-time job, I'd still be pretty skeptical as well. Because even though you have pre-approval, that doesn't automatically guarantee you're going to get the loan. So say, for example, we went and we were successful at an auction, and then the pre-approval fell through. When it actually went to getting the loan, then like you said, we would be up for like, you have to pay like a certain percent, like 1 or 2%, but still that's like quite a lot of money.
Still
for
like
a house.
$20,000 a house that you're not getting. So,
but I feel like if you had an existing house and you could like sell, then that would make sense.
I think that once you've actually gone through like buying a house first, I then think that like an auction is a good idea because you can get a house cheaper than probably what it's worth. But I think for a first home buyer, I think you'd be better off going and doing the full process first. Rather than taking like a risky.
So for this house, we liked it. We wanted to put in an offer. So the kind of the process that we went through was to go and get the Section 32 from the real estate agent. So this is like a very common document that you get whenever you buy like a house. Like it shows like any easements, body corporate, any like overlays if you're looking to like develop, like just like the essential things you kind of need to know, like councils and stuff like that. So we got that document and then we gave it to a conveyancer. So that's like another kind of aspect that you'll most likely need to kind of look into. They kind of do like the paperwork,
the legalities.
All the legalities. So we found our conveyancer who was a recommendation through Aussie. So again, you'll have to do your own research and find one, but they're generally around like $2,000 $1,000 to use them.
Yeah. I think it just depends.
Yeah.
Depends on how complex your buying case is.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's all personal as well. So.
Yeah.
So what we did was we sent the Section 32 to him. So he kind of just tells you like anything that might be of concern, like overlays, that kind of stuff. So he said it was all good. So then we went on to the next step, which was to put in an offer.
Yeah. So when you're ready to put in an offer, you obviously contact the real estate agent and say like, hi, like I'm interested in putting an offer in on this house. Like, are we able to come in, make an appointment? So you do actually have to make an appointment to the real estate agent and go in. It is still a legal process, and it is like an appointment kind of thing where you have to actually go into the real estate agency and sit down with the agent.
Yeah. And then you have to... Is that when you put on the conditions?
Yeah, so when you do your offer, when you put in
go in and,
so when you go in to put an offer in for a property, they will ask you, okay, so what kind of percentage are you looking at offering? And you say, about like roughly 10%. I mean,
for the deposit, like what deposit you use.
Yeah, like what deposit do you have? What is your first offer? So what's your initial offer? And so then you'll obviously go under lower than what it's actually advertised for.
Yeah.
And usually it's, I don't know, it depends. That's quite personal as well.
Yeah, and how much you want to pay, your strategy, because usually whenever you put an offer, you can almost expect to have like a counter offer.
Yes.
And then you also include like other conditions, such as like building and pest. If you want someone to go and like audit the house and see if there's any structural issues, like
termites
and stuff. Yeah,
like any sort of structural, like anything in the roof or the ceiling that's not quite right. And that also stops you from going forward with the offer if there is something wrong. So again, like that's a legal thing that if you don't put it in the offer and then you find out that something is wrong with it, you can't back out. Like you still have to go through with the proceedings, and that can sometimes be a bit of a sting as well.
Because you can only back out of the offer if the building and pest comes back with a bad result. If it's still fine, then you're still kind of held to that offer. And other things we put in was subject to finance, because we were only at the pre-approval stage, and this is also just like another backup as well. In case like
the bank says no.
So
if the bank says no, then you say, well, okay, well the application was subject to finance, we haven't got finance, so sorry, we can no longer buy this house. And so then you forfeit your offer and you don't lose any money, which is really good. And then you also put on the offer your settlement date as well. And I think it's really good to have a conversation with the agent to find out what the homeowner wants, because you're more likely to get the offer approved by the homeowner if the settlement is enticing to them. So even if you offer, lots of money, like a lot higher than what it's advertised for, but they want to get rid of the house really quickly and your settlement is 120 days, they're more likely to take the lower offer of a settlement of 30 days rather than the settlement of 120 days.
Because they're getting X amount of offers. So if they're wanting to move out in 30 days, like you said, then it might be just better for them to get a couple of grand less if they can move out and move into their new house or whatever. So I think it's really good to have that conversation with the agent to see where the homeowner's head is at and then kind of meet in the middle, which was really good. And this moves on to the next kind of phase. So the negotiation.
So you've put in your offer, you put in your offer, and then they will say, okay, well, all offers close on this date, and this is the day that we're going to be presenting all offers to the homeowner, and we will contact you then. If your offer is the lowest, you will most likely hear from us saying that your offer has been rejected. And
then you have an opportunity to come back with a higher offer. So like our experience was completely different from your sister.
My
who was
sister's
buying
experience.
A house at a very similar time as we were.
She bought her house a week before us, I think.
So I think for your sister, she put in an offer and the real estate agent said, hey, your offer isn't the highest. Here was the next highest offer. if you want to go above that, you can. So there was like a constant dialogue where it was like open communication. So the agent was constantly telling your sister, someone's outbid you again. Are you willing to go up a little bit more? And then back and forth.
Yeah.
And that's how she ended up getting her house, because she was like in the loop the whole time.
Yeah. Whereas to be fair, that's actually not.
That's not really what you're meant to do.
That's not right on the agent's part. He was actually not really allowed to do that.
Yeah. So not dropping any names on agents or anything, but.
Yes.
For us, it was a lot different.
So technically, agents are only supposed to give you 1 or 2 other opportunities to provide a higher offer, and then after that, if yours isn't the highest offer, then you don't get to offer any more money.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to keep going back and forth, because it can be a bit time wasting for them. Yeah,
so I think for us, we put in the offer for this house, which I think was 530.
Yeah, or 540. It was quite low.
Yeah, because it was quite low because this was off the market.
This was a private.
So before this house was listed on real estate, the agent... It
was never listed on real estate.
Yeah, it was never listed. The agent actually called us and said, oh, hey, we have a person who's looking to sell. We're just contacting our list of people that are actively looking if you want to come in and see it before it goes live. So that's also like another tip, is to like try and get on the lists, because the agents will actually call you to come and have private viewings one-on-one before it goes live. So we were like, oh yeah, we're going to get this place like super cheap, because I think only other 2 people saw this house, so we were like, oh, we're going to get a deal. So the person selling was asking for, I think, 520 to 540 from memory.
No, it was more than that.
It was more than
that? It was
that?
like 540 to 560.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So I think we went a bit low ball. I think we did like 530 or 540 the first offer.
Yeah.
Because we're like, oh, there's only 2 other people that have seen it, so there's a really good opportunity to get a deal. So we put in the offer, and then the agent called back and said, oh, unfortunately your offer wasn't the highest. And with our agent in particular, he said you only have 1 opportunity for a counter offer.
Yeah.
So make sure it's like the best you can possibly do. So at this point, we were looking for a house for close to 6 months.
Yes.
And we had missed out on the previous house that we put an offer in on. So we were kind of like at our wits' end. We were just like,
whatever.
We were kind of over it in a way.
Yeah.
So we kind of just like wanted to pay for it.
Like
we just like wanted to get
this
it.
house.
Yeah. So we went from our original offer of 530 or 540 or whatever it was, and then I think initially I was going to go to 565, and then we ended up, I was just like, oh screw it, I'll just go 580, because I really want to kind of outbid the other person just so we can like lock it in.
Especially because the other person, which I don't know if the real estate agent was supposed to tell us, but the other person who was putting in an offer was also the other person who put in an offer to the other house that we just lost.
Yeah.
So we knew what kind of budget they kind of had as well.
Yeah,
so we were like, whatever, like we want to just beat them. Like we want this house.
Yeah. So yeah, I think in hindsight it's pretty good. Like we did get a pretty good deal. Maybe we paid a little bit more than we would have wanted to.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, that maybe $5,000-$10,000 has allowed us to get this house. We've saved more time, like keeping on looking and stuff like that. So I guess that's just something that you just have to kind of face. Like you might pay a little bit more than you're expecting.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, our budget was $600,000, so we're still below our budget.
And like $5,000 difference over like what 30 years isn't that much. Like it doesn't equate to a lot. So we're like, well, like if it's only $5,000 more than what we would have liked to have paid, whatever, that's $5,000. Like it's not actually a lot of money.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
So yeah, we got the house.
Yay!
So the next step, I guess, is to go and get accepted for full approval from the bank. So even when you get approved, or when the offer gets accepted rather, I feel like for us we were kind of like, oh yes, but at the same time we were like, oh, we don't want to get too excited because
we still might get rejected. Like I think we were, it was like 2 weeks or something, 2 or 3 weeks in between getting the offer approved and then getting approval from the bank, and we were both so on edge. Because we were like, well, what, like, we are so close. Like, why, like, what could we do to, like, not get it?
Yeah. So the bank they get someone to come around and evaluate the house, just to make sure the price you're paying aligns with the actual valuation.
Yeah.
Because if it went tits up and we had to, or the bank had to take the home, they kind of want to ensure that they can actually get a good price for the house. So yeah, they come around and do that. And then they have another look at our finances. So if there was any updates to how much we were earning, whether we lost our jobs or whatever, they assess that again. And I think that was actually surprisingly pretty easy. They didn't really ask.
No, they didn't really ask, because usually a lot of people get asked to provide more bank statements or like provide more information, but they didn't. I think because we were really open and honest in the beginning, like we were like, this is what we earn, these are the debts that we have,
we gave
these are our assets, like we were pretty detailed with what we had. So I think that made it a lot easier as well.
So then for us, the approval of the house from the bank came back all good. So then they gave us full approval for the house, so that was all good. And then I think from there, the conveyancer, the mortgage broker, and the bank all communicate together. So that was a pretty hands-off process, really. The only thing we really had to do was go in and sign the papers.
Yeah, so I think that from getting the your mortgage approved to settlement, you really only have like one interaction, and then that's it. You kind of, you don't forget it. You don't forget about it, but you don't actually get any communication until just before your settlement date, when you have to go into the conveyancer and sign all their paperwork for fees and everything like that. Yeah,
so we were kind of a bit, just a bit lost as to like what to do. But the conveyancers and the mortgage broker were pretty good with like letting us know.
Like, this is the stage that we're up to. This is what's going to happen next. Yeah, you'll hear from us on this date about this.
Yeah, so they should keep you in the loop. And before you go and get the keys, the last kind of step that you do is to go and have a look at the house, like within the last week of getting the keys, just to make sure that it's like in the same condition as when you went to go see it in the open home or whatever. Just to make sure there's like no holes or missing whatever.
Because then, so once you go and do your last inspection, if there are any marks on the walls or any dents, or if there's been any damage during the moving process, you can then go back to the conveyancer and say, well, there was actually this damage, so then that amount of money needs to come off the offer, and then you get reimbursed for that as well. So I think that that's a really important thing that everyone should be doing, is to check the house before they actually finish settlement.
So I guess it's like a pretty mundane thing, but for us personally, we were going to make some minor renovations on the house. So we came, I think, 3 weeks before we got the keys, just to measure up the rooms, so we can have an idea of what we would have to spend for painting and floors.
And couches and furniture and stuff.
So that kind of counted, I guess, half at looking at the place. And then we were meant to come a week before we got the keys and have another look. But our real estate agent was actually on holiday, so we actually didn't get that opportunity to come back. So I guess we should have pushed harder and maybe contact another agent.
But I mean, luckily it worked out all in the end, and there was actually nothing wrong with the house.
No, there's nothing wrong with the house, but when we rocked up, the previous owner had just dumped all of her stuff on the front
nature strip,
so that was a bit annoying because she didn't organise that stuff to get removed, so we had to do that. So I guess that kind of just removes any of that stuff as well.
On settlement day, they usually try and do settlement in the morning, so then by the afternoon your keys are ready for you to go. So what happens is that the bank, the conveyancer, and the mortgage broker all get on a call, and they'll all agree to a whole bunch of different things. I actually don't really know what they do. And then once everything has been approved and the bank's all happy, conveyancers all happy, and mortgage brokers all happy, they'll actually call you 15 minutes or so later. The conveyancer will call you and say, you know, hi Angie, just to let you know that you have actually, that settlement's all gone through, the money's been withdrawn, like congratulations, you're now a homeowner. And then the conveyancer will then call the real estate agent, and then the keys will usually be ready within half an hour. So I think that once I got the call saying, oh, everything's gone through, it's all approved, the keys will be ready in the next 15 minutes. So I think I might have been at school setting up my classroom that day, and then I finished early and we raced down to the real estate agent, picked up the keys, and then we came over. And then, it's really exciting. As soon as we got the keys, we actually had paint pots, because we knew that we wanted to paint the walls, and it was just like a really...
Yeah, no messing around, straight into it.
Yeah, but like we were so excited because, you know, it wasn't a naughty thing to actually put paint on the walls because we owned that house, and I think that was really special.
We could just start demolishing if we wanted to.
Yeah.
No worries. And like, I think just as an extra thing that I forgot to mention was if the sold sticker. I mean, it's pretty basic, but I think, I don't know, for some people, I guess they want to put the sticker on the sign. And our agent asked us if we wanted to do it, and we're like, sure. But he didn't get back to us, so he just did it himself. So I don't care about that, but...
I mean, I was pretty disappointed because I would have liked to have been there for the sold sticker to actually have gone on. It wasn't a big deal. We still got our photo, but I think that's... it's just a minute detail.
So if you want to get the photo op, make sure you really like nail in a time to put the sticker on.
Yeah, get on to that agent.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it, I guess. That's our journey of how we got this house, and just some tips and tricks on what we've kind of like figured out along the way.
Yeah, we hope that you are actually still listening, because we know that this video is extremely long. If you do have any other questions, or if you have any anything that you want to ask either of us or both of us about our experience or anything, please make sure that you leave a comment down below. Give this video a thumbs up as well.
And don't forget to subscribe.
And don't forget to click that subscribe button as well. Thank Lewis for coming on today. And we'll see you in the next video.
See ya.
Bye.